I'm probably doing you a favor.
Well, this is great. We might actually start a few minutes early. It would be good for a giggle, and gives Mopani and I a little bit of a chance to introduce more things. So hopefully now
This is great.
we are
start a few minutes
officially
early.
live.
Sorry, I just wanted to check your live. Sorry about that.
Definitely live.
Turn it off.
That's great. Okay.
It is going live, so.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what I can do to start off with, just as we get settled in, is share the menti.com, which we've got running right now. So for everybody that's watching, hopefully you can see this. If you go to menti.com and put in this code, there'll be some interactive questions and things that you can do along the way, which is a nice little setup. It's very helpful because it doesn't matter if you're on Facebook Live or watching this on Zoom, you all get the same menti.com, just slightly out of sync with each other. Okay, so I guess we can do some introductions and slow start just a few minutes before the official start at 3 o'clock. So my name's Stuart. I'm the co-host today with Mopani. I'm a founder of Canopy, and I'm really excited to bring this together today. This is such an important topic for the now, but it's also a really important topic for me personally and professionally. So it's wonderful to have this panel together to kind of share their experiences. Mopani, who are you?
Hi there, my name is Mopani. I'm one of the co-hosts. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a professional internal communications person, and more importantly, I'm a presenter. So I am here to help Stuart moderate, keep you guys entertained, and keep these guys on time as they give you valuable information. So
it's really because we brought troublemakers together as a panel, right, Mopani? It takes two of us to corral them through, especially Krishan, who's up there right in space, starting us off in the right spirit. Love it. So Mopani, how are we going to sequence everything today? How are we going to make it work?
Well, on top of the foundation of a lot of energy and engagement between us are flowing through, we're going to start off and kick off just a few presentations from people, 3 to 5 minutes. Keep it short and sweet from each one of you. Some might have videos to show you. And then we're gonna dive straight into the main event, which is gonna be a 35 minutes discussion. A discussion to get what you wanted to hear and have these guys answer all the key questions we have. And then after that Q&A and discussion session, we'll have a 5 minutes roundup with all the takeaways. So most of the event is gonna be that. Am I correct, Stu? Unless there's something else.
Absolutely, yeah. And all the presentations, we've got recordings at the moment, except for Krishan, and it's my fault if it goes wrong on this section. Okay, this is the organizer's responsibility. I guess we can introduce each of the panelists before we get into that bit, though. So we'll go in the order that we're going to do the presentations. Dave, would you like to say who you are first, please, mate?
Sure. So I'm Dave Easter. I'm the Director of Product Management for Process Automation at Micro Focus. Process automation is a blend of IT process automation, so the computer-to-computer automation, robotic process automation, which is human-to-computer automation, and then business process management, which is human-to-human automation.
Wonderful to have you here, Dave. And where are you joining us from?
From San Jose, California.
Okay, so it's still a little bit early for you, or a little bit late?
Exactly. Yep. Still waiting for the sun to come up.
Wonderful. Thanks for making the effort today. So number 2 on a hit parade will be Chitra today. So Chitra, who the heck are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chitra Stern. I am the CEO of the United Lisbon International School and the United Lisbon Education Hub, amongst other roles, mother of 4, wife, daughter, mother, sister, lots, connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, in education, for thinking a lot about it for some years, but actively investing and doing something about it for the last 3 years. So that's me.
Amazing to have you here, Chitra. Thank you very much. Monique, can you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here today. I'm Monique Fuchs. I'm the founder and principal of FutureSight Collective, which is an advisory consulting agency that works collaboratively with thought leaders across the world to kind of surface trends and insights, how we will maybe live and work in the future. And especially after post-COVID, that seems like an important topic to actually tackle. I'm passionate about education. I've been in the education space for quite some time and always trying to be the rebel and exercise future thinking. So I'm excited to be here with you.
Amazing to have you here, Monique. And Christian, you're going to close out the presentations. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Mitu, and I guess I'm in an odd space because I'm an entrepreneur without portfolio. So I've just actually sold 2 of my businesses in the last 12 months. They were all in education. So I had founded Construct Education, which creates online program management. So everything you need around the learning experience. And prior to that, Virtual Institutes. Prior to that, I led the Bloodhound education program. And so really my journey has been kind of this notion of, I love education, but I hate school. So I always wanted to just see whatever ways I could bring technology, design to the fore to change the way we educate and learn.
Amazing, thank you. And I guess for all of you starting to watch this, you can see we've brought together a very different kind of panel that you would normally get. You know, often when people talk about the future of education, it can be a bit of an education love-in, right? Everybody with very similar views and perspectives. And we've brought together very different lenses here to talk about this topic. And one of the reasons we've asked Dave to join us is really to talk about how industry is viewing things at the moment, how jobs are changing, and really bring that perspective home, particularly around robotic process automation and what that's going to mean to us in the future. So Mapani, let's hope all our planning goes well, right? This is a big moment, and wish everybody a lovely webinar today.
Let's
It's
do
a team
this.
sport after all. If you're in the audience and you've got questions, please put them into the Q&A section. We'll try and get them as we go. And thank you also to everybody who's contributed on LinkedIn to the discussions and information ahead of today, and also voted on the shape of the way we're going to do questions today. So we really appreciate that. Just to get used to how Menti works, if you want to put in your hometown over here, it's nice just to see this all come up. And there'll be other things that are a bit more engaging later, but it's nice just to see the different variety of things from Lisbon to Lebanon at the moment. That's great. So you should be able to see at the top of the screen the code, but if you go to menti.com, it's 94678695. You can even put yours in there, Mapani, if you want.
Oh yeah. On that's pretty cool.
Thanks, Monique. That's good. That's nice to see. Thank you very much.
I am just testing how fast mine comes up. That was pretty quick.
Okay. No, that's great. And the great thing about menti.com as well is it will be there after the fact. So you'll be able to look back on some of these things and the questions and things that people put in. So Dave, if this bit goes well, I'm going to show your video now. Is that okay?
That's perfectly wonderful.
Okay. So the idea behind this, for anybody who hasn't been to one of our things before, is that each of the panelists has expressed their views in these 3 to 5 minute vids. And we've obviously posted them before, so you can watch them, but we just want to recap at the start so that we're all on the same page before we start the discussion, okay? Biraj, nice to see you, buddy. Hey, Biraj, thanks for being here. I think you're supposed to be on the other side today, though, right?
Yeah, why? This is the link that came on in the email.
Okay.
Yeah,
We might. I'll let you work it out while we just start Dave's video, okay?
no problems.
Share sound. All right. Can you see Dave?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Can you hear Dave?
No. Hello, my name is
All right.
David J. Easter, and I'm a Director of Product Management focusing on business process automation at Micro Focus. I've been asked to share with you how computer-based robots have replaced the menial, repetitive, and error-prone tasks typically assigned to junior employees. But since I have important higher-level duties that require my attention, instead of reading off a script, I've assigned my personal assistant, Wally, to do the presentation for me. Take it away, Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Easter. I'm so excited to be able to share my skills with this audience. Shall we begin? Today, computers have become hyper-automated, which means that their capabilities extend beyond just answering questions. In hyper-automation, Computers can be used to snoop on application interactions performed by humans and identify the least efficient transactions, whether that is due to long pauses between actions, numerous mistakes while typing, or a large number of error messages. Once those inefficient processes have been identified, the original actions of the human can be emulated by robotic process automation, which enables computers to interact with applications through a standard user interface rather than computer code. Once the process has been designed, computers can, where application programmatic interfaces are in fact available, communicate with each other at speeds typically about 24 times faster than a human could. To gather the data necessary to run the process, a computer can use optical character recognition and natural language processing to literally see, read, or hear pages of information being sent to it. This recognition has become so advanced that computers can now compare images or phrases previously encountered, and recognize that they are close enough to the original to be considered the same. Luckily, our new computer overlords still have a use for us. If, during the execution of a process, a computer needs further input or a higher level decision by a person, they can reach out via email, text message, phone call, voice interface, or similar interaction to gather more data. And finally, computers can explain the things that they've done to their human servants, allowing people to interpret the actions taken and provide suggestions of even more ways to take advantage of the superior execution of computer-based robots. What used to be a carbon-based unit's first job right out of college is quickly being replaced by software robots. Here are some examples of things a robot can do. At a pharmaceutical company, a robot may be asked to review all published medical journals to find all the mentions of the company's new drug, and how it compares with the market leader. Not only can it create a heat map of how often a drug is mentioned, and in which journals, the robot's machine learning can also read the sentences around the mention, and identify if the feedback is positive or negative. For example, if the word revolutionary or groundbreaking is found in relation to your mention, that indicates a positive response. Corporate identity is critical to every company. A robot can wake up every hour and scan hundreds of websites for the use of your corporate logo. By utilizing artificial intelligence, that robot can determine if your logo is being used by another company, even if it has been altered from the original. For example, a robot could detect a logo with 3 golden arches, instead of the classic 2. As companies begin to reopen their offices as the risk of COVID-19 becomes manageable, a robot can identify every city where offices are located, and query medical sources to determine if the infection rate is low enough to be safe. The robot can also check the status of plexiglass and rearranging desks to ensure social distancing measures are confirmed in place prior to opening. Other actions could be to notify employees, including the delivery of key procedural documents, automating surveys to employees already in reopened offices, and reporting on overall status of the reopening process. Other tasks now done by robots include mortgage submission reviews, student or employee onboarding, purchase order processing, finding the best deals on an Airbnb site, and the list is growing. So, what will humans have to offer this digital workforce? In previous decades, most of the work done by junior employees was in pursuit of answers. Executives needed the raw data to be formatted into summarized and digestible chunks of information. But now that this can be done by computers, executives are looking for an interpretation of the data, rather than a presentation. Employees are expected to know why the data ended up the way it did, and predict what will change in the future. It is this human intuition, coupled with subject matter expertise on the data sources, that can answer these questions. Some IT professionals are familiar with the concept of runbooks, literally a notebook of explicit steps to perform an action. Technology replaced these paper books, and enabled computers to take actions based on simple rules, like a stock price crossing a threshold. But with the introduction of artificial intelligence and machine learning, even complicated decision trees can be executed by computers based on previous similar occurrences. Computers can now learn that when situation A is caused by error B, that loading patch C fixes the problem, even if not explicitly programmed to do so. Thus, the value of people in the process is to determine how to deal with unexpected situations, and get the computer process back on track. And finally, realize that you'll be judged by your ability to interact with computers, not just for data entry or information retrieval, but also how you use them to interact with other people. Today, a plumber is judged not only for his ability to fix a leaky pipe, but also his ability to communicate with customers via email or text messaging, scheduling and providing arrival updates based on GPS location, solving problems on-site by collaborating with peers over a virtual chat room, and providing digital methods for billing and receiving payments. The most valuable individuals in an organization can not only communicate with the computers, but teach the computers how to communicate with others. How did I do, boss?
You did great, Wally. And thank you, the human participants, for the chance to share this information digitally. I look forward to the rest of the event.
Okay, wow, that was quite something. Thank you there. That was a presentation from Dave Easter. For those who just joined, I know a lot of you did. We are currently doing 3 to 5 minute presentations before we go on to our discussions. So that was Dave Easter. Who do we have next, Stu?
So it's Chitra next. Chitra, do you want to try from your side to share your one?
Yep, I'm going to try that. Let me just host disabled participant screen sharing. You have to allow me to.
That's really funny. There's no option. Okay, I'll share it. That's the easy way. That's the easy way. Hang on.
Sorry, I mean, I can send you
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all
all
good.
right.
I've got you teed up over here. Don't worry. I've been watching it a lot, your video, you know.
Oh, thank you. Obviously a hit.
So I will do my best to share this as a window. You see that okay?
Yeah. We don't hear it. From the United Lisbon International School, our kindergarten to grade 12 school in Lisbon. We just opened the United Lisbon International School in September 2020 with state-of-the-art facilities and an international, experienced and diverse faculty. In the 3-year build-up to the opening of the school, we had to think really hard about the future of the workplace and the future of education. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are completely changing the workplace of the future, and jobs will look very different in 10 to 20 years' time. To address this, we have integrated tech and coding into our curriculum. We've not just built beautiful art rooms and science laboratories, we've also built a makerspace with a 3D printer and a laser cutter. In the makerspace, kids learn through play and creative exercises. They learn about bbots, they learn about coding, they learn through Minecraft. Apart from this excellent curriculum, which ends in the IB Diploma program, we're working very hard on our extracurricular activities. We've partnered with top-notch sports institutions around us to deliver a great sports program after school. We're working together with the Sporting Football Club or Sporting Clube de Portugal for our soccer academy here on site. We're working together with a fantastic dance school that's giving dance lessons on site. For those coding enthusiasts who want to do more coding after school, we're working together with Shark Coders. Language forms a very important part of our curriculum. Our first language is English, and our second language is Portuguese, which we take very seriously. For those students who want to learn a third language, we're working together and collaborating with outside partners to enable them to learn a third language. Language is extremely important to develop empathy and the understanding of other cultures. At United Lisbon, we're developing students' emotional intelligence and empathy through our Embrace program as well, which focuses on community service and sustainability projects. Now that the United Lisbon International School is open, we're turning our focus to phase 2, the United Lisbon Education Hub. The EduHub is a space which is an ecosystem for lifelong learning. It will have 15,000 square meters of student accommodation and 7,500 square meters for offices for tech companies, as well as hybrid learning spaces. Students from the United Lisbon International School will be able to do shadowing projects and internships with these companies in phase 2 and understand what real life workspaces are about. This way, they will be able to evolve and develop the competences and skills that are needed in real life. COVID-19 has accelerated online learning, especially for university and college students around the world. However, we at United Lisbon EduHub believe that students can't just do online learning. They need human interaction. They need social interaction with their peers. They need some physical supervision. We at United Lisbon EduHub will bring all of this together in our hybrid campus, where students will also have the opportunity to do summer internships with the tech companies on site and do real life projects on an ongoing basis for these companies. For more information on the United Lisbon International School, please go to unitedlisbon.school. And for more information on the EduHub, please go to eduhublisbon.com. But I've got a 1-minute film for you that explains the United Lisbon EduHub a lot better. See you later for questions and answers.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Stu. Fantastic that it worked.
Yes, and you are on mute, Stu.
Hey, the first one. No, I just wanted to say fantastic, and particularly like the vision that you and Roman had in putting that together. I remember standing on the derelict roof, looking out over all of that and saying, this is what we think we're going to create. And I was like, there's no way you have that kind of vision. I can't see where you're going with that. I can understand a startup, but I can't understand like this building thing. And to actually see it coming together like that is absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Stu. Can't wait to show you in person.
What do you think, Mapane? Your newborn, should we take him there?
Oh, first of all, I love the music. It was catchy. And I see you're partnered with Sporting Lisbon. So if we moved, we're getting my son in there, you know.
All right.
Brilliant.
Got our first recruit.
So that was Chitra Stern, our second panelist, doing a presentation. We will be moving on to our third and then fourth, and then we'll have discussions and Q&A. So who is our next panelist presentation, Stu?
Well, it's Monique. Okay, you ready for this, Monique?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go for it. And optimize.
My name is Monique Fuchs, and I'm the founder and principal of FutureSight Collective. Reinventing education and the future of work are topics for years. However, the pandemic has accelerated that sense of urgency. And for good reason, should we ask ourselves, do we simply get back to normal, whatever normal means? Or are we taking the chaos and systemic challenges the pandemic painfully highlighted as an engine for reinvention? Automation, artificial intelligence are increasing rapidly, and many jobs will vanish and new ones will be created. But most of them we don't even know. So how can we focus on the human superpowers that can't be replaced? Knowledge turnaround will continue to shrink, making knowledge outdated before a college student can finish a 4-year degree. And disciplines will converge further, making it less logical that education is structured in subject matters and majors rather than focused on actual solving problems. To top it off, Generation Y and Z value purpose over careers. They have been called the slash generation, with an understanding that they can combine multiple different roles in one person. They're more interested working for organizations that truly are impactful and contributing meaningfully to society. And these generations will be the ones to question our current systems and creating alternate models if the systems don't actually move over. In 2020, we also experienced that education was forced to radically shift to the virtual world. And ironically, this remote model became the reliable constant for over 1 year now. Since knowledge acquisition and easy access to content can be delivered via many channels, what's the purpose and value of education? Well, the purpose of education is not simply to prepare a workforce to fulfill jobs, but rather preparing humans to ask the right questions, solve systemic interconnected problems, and have the curiosity and courage to actively shape our futures. There is a difference between knowing content versus knowing what to do with it. The core competencies of the future will be creativity and innovation. We need talent that can work at the intersection and tension of disciplines, is comfortable in not knowing, and able to creatively and innovatively source collective intelligence, combine knowledge, and make new connections to apparently disparate content. We need social responsibility, like the contextualization and applying knowledge through experiences will be critical. Partnerships with industry, government, and communities are central to produce purpose-driven educational models, fostering empathy and empower students for real impact. And resilience, as we will continue to face an uncertain future and major disruptions through pandemics, climate change, or digitalization, we need to strengthen our muscle to remain resilient, tackle the unexpected, adapt to new circumstances flexibly, and remain optimistic by all of this. And the experimentation will be a key ingredient. The curiosity is important as well. Then as children, we are naturally curious, accessing our natural instincts and following pathways and topics we're curious about will be the engine to innovate, break boundaries, and exercise resilience. This will cause educational systems and workplaces to rethink traditional performance outcomes. Despite us knowing all of this, and especially coming out of COVID at some point, what will we do with it? Will we simply get through this big disruption? Or will we be able to actually take advantage of the crisis? But how can a large and intertwined system actually change? We ought to embrace newness, celebrating pushing new models such as edX or Udacity that could redefine how we set up lifelong learning and democratize access to education, much needed to support talent shortages in industries. We will need to act brave to withstand the systems we know and experiment with different pathways. And we need to challenge the status quo. We know grades don't predict future career success. So let's rethink what matters for college acceptance or for actually scoring that first job. I'm leaving you with a couple of plausible future scenarios as a way to instigate your thinking and potentially action. Imagine there would be careers without degrees. Imagine the actual piece of paper would not matter anymore. Instead, resumes will be judged by the experiences individuals put themselves in, demonstrating social impact and solving problems across disciplines. Or lifelong learning marketplaces. Universities will maybe not survive on their own. Instead, envision a marketplace type setup where students can take classes from a university, company, or other players. It will require universities to focus on the niche and ask the specific value they can bring to that marketplace. What about breaking boundaries, like the tripod of academia, industry, and communities? They could co-create education. Majors are not discipline focused any longer, but rather anchored around societal challenges, demonstrating the intertwined nature and complexity of problems. And lastly, what about ownership stake? How would education look like if it is funded by industries? What if teachers, faculty, parents would have an ownership stake in the institution? Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Monday, March 15th, 3 p.m. London time, online at Canopy Community.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Monique, and thanks for bringing a Boston and a German perspective to everything. Mopani, I see we've got a few questions in the chat already. Would you like to handle a couple of those for us, and let's see what we can do? And I'll just get ready with Krishan's video while you're on that.
Roger that. Would you like me to answer them myself or 5 of the panelists?
I can answer. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Fire them out, Mopani. Let's go for it.
Yep. First question was not, well, it did say, with these advancements in computers, do kids need to learn reading, or can one have rich communications verbally in entirety? And it says, imagine the time saved in schools if we didn't have to teach to mechanics of reading. Any points on that?
Dave, I guess that one's for you. You just speak in binary, right?
One.
101.
Yeah, well, so actually, I think it's actually the opposite, where you find that we're using our reading and learning skills to be able to talk to computers. And so if you're not able to read and be able to communicate with humans, you're going to fail to be able to communicate with computers. So I think it's actually quite important to be able to learn both writing and reading.
I'd just like to add to that, that the sort of analysis part becomes even more important, with computers and robots doing pretty basic tasks. You actually have to get deeper than just reading or writing. You have to be able to read and write, at a higher level, right, Dave? I mean, complexity, the world's become more complex. The robots are taking the simpler tasks away from us. So I think, you have to get to the analytical level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I can throw in one more thing, I think there's a big misnomer in education and in society. We often think that we need to always make things easier. But the latest in cognitive science clearly illustrates that actually the harder time you have with the subject matter, the better recall, the better retention, and actually the better chance you have of those synapses cross-firing, which is what you really want.
No, thanks, Nick. Thanks for answering that. And we will keep answering these questions, but we also have to stick to time. And we've got our fourth presentation from Krishan before we finally come with the discussions. So Krishan, over to you. Stu, are we ready?
We are, Mopani. I'm going to do my very best. Hang on.
Roger that.
Every time I set this up, it changes. Here we go. Hang on. No, come back. See.
You have to download it potentially.
Oh no, I'm all good. I'm all good. Don't worry. I'm all good. How is that?
I hope this message finds you well. My name is Krishan Mitu, and I am a social entrepreneur.
We see your desktop.
I'm so delighted to.
You do? You don't see?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit prettier than that first slide. I must
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second.
He's actually in the slide. He's just way in the distance.
You could hear it, just not see it.
Yeah.
If you need more time, I'm happy to fire away another question.
Yeah, go for another question. Thanks, Mopani.
Roger that. The next one is for Monique. It says, thank you so much for the presentation. You make great points about the importance of purpose and resilience. What advice would you give to traditional universities to prepare to the exciting new world ahead of us? This is from Brian McAfee, Lake, excuse my pronunciation, Lake Oswego in Oregon.
Hey, Brian, it's good to see you here with us. I actually was just typing a response, so I can just jump in and respond. I would suggest creating a parallel path, like where you create an environment where you potentially could incubate new educational models within the university and be able to actually learn and set them up as experiments. So it doesn't feel like super threatening for the organization as a whole, but it has like clear metrics associated with it and a governance structure that really shows commitment from the top down. Like you can't base it on volunteerism. You're not going to be able to recruit faculty and say, hey, if you are interested, we can move in this new direction. It has to be like some framework, some structure where people clearly can see this is where we ought to move and how are we going to get there. And slowly, year over year, you're starting to add more courses or you're adding more projects, you're creating more data points. But I would probably start in a non-threatening way and creating a prototyping mindset and an experimentation mindset and get people enlisted that want to be that rebel, that want to come up with like new things and crack the code and go outside the organizations and collaborate with external communities. I think it's utterly important, and really reframe on how we think about content, really crash those curricula and really set them up in a completely new way. Imagine they wouldn't be there, because then you don't even get into a situation where you want to hang on to that status quo.
Awesome.
All right, Mapani, I think I've cracked it. Let's give it another try, okay?
All right, let's
Go.
go.
Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Come on.
Message finds
Can
me
you
well.
hear
My
that?
name is Krishan,
Yes,
me
we
too,
can.
and I'm a social entrepreneur. And I'm so delighted to meet you all in the Canopy community and various other communities that are joining us online. And as tough as these moments are, I think it's really important for us to come together and really see what we can do towards building a better, fairer, and more equitable future for not only education, but also what we do for work. And so there's no denying that perhaps one of the real big issues that we face is really this sense of disconnect between education and employment. Just to give you an idea of how significant some of these issues are, is that as many as 80% of university graduates coming out of developing countries are widely considered as unemployable in the marketplace. And clearly the pandemic will only serve to exacerbate these issues. And when it comes to thinking about why we have got here, I think a lot of this is rooted in expectation. And clearly we have the institutional expectations at either end. And that's not to say that they don't work together and collaborate well. I mean, let's be real. For everything from graduate shows in design schools to technology partnerships and knowledge transfer networks, these are all models that have been used by education and employment to collaborate and work together, but they clearly aren't working. And then we also must not forget about the learner themselves. In fact, some of their biggest challenges, particularly when it comes to navigating both realms, is really some of the expectations and stories that have been kind of carried through their childhood and perhaps even before they were born. And then I also think it's fair to look at the end game, which is really quite different. So whereas you could almost say that education tends to serve a finite goal in general, whereas employers are constantly looking to layer on competencies and practices on board, and this is clearly a significant issue. However, what's interesting with the onset of nano degrees, and also we did we've worked quite heavily with MIT to develop a blockchain-based credentialing system that allows somewhere of a halfway house in all this. But the reality is that both ends of education and employment work at very, very different rates. So just to give you an idea, for an education program, say a university degree, it can take up to 7 years for it to be designed, built, and accredited by a professional body. And if you contrast this with employment, which can turn around a significant amount of material in about a year. We found developing courses anywhere between 6 and 12 months in the past. And so we have this sort of challenge where you have a highly iterative, very cyclical nature that we find in employment training and development practices, whereas sort of the long tail, deep development that education tries to put across. So now that we have a handle on perhaps some of the issues behind the disconnect, let's look at a way forward. And what I'd like to posit is really a hark back to really the core fundamentals of why we are here to educate, why we are here to train, and why we are here to work. And that's really about the person, the individual. I think in some ways we've forgotten about that. And I think particularly in academia, it's more a prevalent issue because often the focus is the institution, the doctrine, the curriculum, and for good reason. But I think the reality is that the way we are developing and the need to be adaptable, the need to be flexible, this is going to be a core tenet of what we do. And something to look at is really the online program management space, where particularly at Construct, we really looked at the end-to-end user experience. And this is really speaking to the prevailing trend that will be for the next couple of decades, and that is of far more engaging and personalized learning experiences. After all, we are really ultimately in an arms race, not against other institutions or programs, but ultimately the Facebooks and the Netflixes of this world. So really we're coming to lifelong learning as a practice, And just to break this model down, if you'd like to dive into it in the conversation, I'd love to. Core fundamentals, which are in essence reasoning, problem solving, communication, and what I feel is perhaps the most important life skill, grit. Then proficiency notes. Think of this as subject matter expertise, such as languages, specific areas of knowledge and skill. And then there's in essence, the top-ups, the things we use to rise to challenge. So this is just-in-time education. I think the reality is that it's not necessarily the educator or the trainer that has the ear of the learner as they once did. It's also the influencer, who they listen to, who they follow. And I think that's equally important. And I just want to take a minute to thank you all. Really appreciate your time. Stay safe.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was Christian on the fourth presentation. Really appreciate that, which brings a close to the 4 presentations. And we will now be beginning our discussions with your panelists. Just to reiterate, our questions are coming through. So panelists, if you can sometimes answer, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. And so just over 25 minutes, Stu, would you like to kick us off with one of my favorite questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the panel as a whole, and for Dave to start, if you could, I wonder if you could answer for us, what is the purpose of education from your perspective?
Well, it's an interesting question because, from a life experience, I actually remember back in high school, I took advanced placement of computer science, and the amazing language they taught me was Pascal, which I learned in high school and never used again. So in that terms, education was not teaching a particular skill. What it taught me, though, when I moved into my real world job, is I learned shell scripting on a Unix platform. It taught me the structure of programming, but not the actual content of programming. And I think that's really what education is trying to drive. It's the ability to be able to learn, the ability to understand critical thinking, the ability to be able to learn new concepts and be able to take those forward, and not necessarily content or the actual book learning that's being done today.
Pascal, I learned Fortran, so I know where you're coming from. And Chitra, what's your perspective? What is the purpose of education?
Just to add to that, I learned BASIC and then C++, but anyway. And I don't use programming. Unfortunately, I didn't become a programmer. But the purpose of education, in my opinion, is to prepare kids for the future, to teach them how to survive and succeed in the world in the future, while being balanced and happy and healthy at the same time. So, I take the holistic approach. Success is important. It can be defined in different ways. But it's, Darwinian theory comes to mind, it's the survival of the fittest. And we need to teach kids in school to be fit for the future. That is the purpose of education.
Where do you take this, Monique?
I would agree that the content might become less relevant, but it is kind of an exercise platform where we can exercise our thinking and how we put different informations together. So I don't believe, like the question was also in the chat, that the education as we know it today will go away entirely. But I think we do have to reframe. There is a time to submit content to learners, and there is a time to actually have them do something with the content and apply it and curate it and create that quality control to make sure that they have the rigor instilled as well. So you can't just watch a couple of YouTube videos on architecture and then turn to be an architect, right? There needs to be like some curation of content to actually get you the knowledge you need in order to be able to go to a construction site or design a building and make it earthquake safe. So there is certainly more to that, but I do feel the secret sauce of education is to create those experiences where industries collide, where humans collide, where problems collide. And I think the focus needs to shift from actually solving problems and what do we need in order to solve problems. Then it automatically drives the content that people absorb that goes beyond the disciplines. And it also goes beyond, exercising different competencies. And I think that's what is going to drive education in the future, or at least the successful ones.
But surely, Christian, education is all about textbook sales, right? What do you think?
It's a good point. I love actually all the comments already on like a holistic education. I think everyone's brought something really awesome to the table. I want to take it in a almost stage left, turn 90 degrees. I think education at its best is when you get that striking sense of awe, when you just suddenly are able to break through into a new space that you never thought possible. For me, that is the real purpose of education. I think all the rest kind of dovetails off that. Once you have that curiosity and that drive, then actually all the technical competencies, the social competencies that you need come through. But I think that also in the Q&A, I saw a question on the socioeconomic disparity that we see. And I think that is almost a counterpoint, like how do we protect for that? Because the reality, to support Monique's point on, we really need to have those collisions of people of different backgrounds, different walks of life. That's how we can bridge together. We are in a world that is quite divided at this point. And actually, I think education has a very strong role in bringing us back together.
So do you think the constructs of social media and such are kind of breaking down those barriers, though? I mean, you've got people that become amazing musicians on YouTube that have no backing by music industry or any corporate influence.
No, for sure. But I think the problem with social media is it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, in that a lot of people are finding their own echo chambers. And so you're not getting sort of that sort of challenge cognitively or emotionally. We're not being able to build those skills to come back together. But no, I mean, definitely it's all amazing stuff. And definitely the more we can, scale and be able to bridge, particularly borders, it's exceptionally powerful for sure. Let's say there's a challenge with the technology. It's gone perhaps too much of a good thing in an odd way.
That's amazing coming from you, right? That's amazing. But I guess unless we can understand the purpose of education, it's very hard to talk about its future, right, Mopani? Do you have any views about, for your newborn, what do you see as the purpose of educating them?
I see them as teaching them how to think, right? I think my own personal, maybe it's a political view, we tend to teach them what to think, but teaching them how to think. But that's another can of worms that I don't necessarily want to open, because my job is to keep us on time. So I
love you, Mopani. Thank you for that.
Which is an impressive skill.
Move on to the next question, but thank you for asking, Stu. Thinking more about the future, the WEF, which is the World Economic Forum, says 65% or 65% plus of jobs will be doing in the next 10 years don't exist yet. So what do you think are some of these roles? What do you think they'll be? We can start off from Christian, since we ended with you, we'll go back that way.
So, I mean, clearly it will be mostly the mid to low skill workers that will suffer the most with the drive to automation. And I think a couple of the presentations we had, there was a note which I loved about creativity. And again, I think that is where, actually I made a note after hearing Dave's presentation, actually, is that perhaps the counterpoint to, automation is that it is liberation in a way. And I'm just freeballing here, but I think that's a good way to look at it, is that are we really meant to be doing low skilled, menial jobs? What if we could be set free from those? And that's the exciting side of it. We can play devil's advocate.
Interesting. Playing devil's advocate. I don't know who wants to go next from that.
I would actually not say that it's devil's advocate. That's actually one reason why we do automation. So, the point is when we sell the automation to consumers is to say you shouldn't be doing the menial, repetitive, error-prone tasks you do today. You should be up there doing higher level thoughts and solving business problems and solving world problems and economic problems, and let a robot do it for you. So it frees you.
And it's actually going to really focus in on the humanness, right? What makes us human? Like, what are our superpowers, and why are we better than a robot could ever potentially be? So I think the future jobs might definitely circle around the intersections between humans and machines, and how we are actually able to harness the machine power, but yet bring our best self to the table, right? If we think about ambidexterity, where on the one hand side, we're maximizing through strategy our day-to-day output, that's cool. And that's potentially something that machines could take over. But then where is the exploration potential? Where can we create innovation, and where can we actually go out and create new connection, create new ideas, exercise creativity, things that a computer can't easily compute just because they don't have the experience on potentially connecting something that's totally not related. And so creating connective tissue among different dispersed variants and audiences, I think that's what the superhuman power is. And we will need to focus more on that in the future. And the roles will be constructed around that.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to add that, you know, we have to think of it from a young age. Our school is a kindergarten, actually early childhood 3, so age 3 up to 18. And, you know, what kind of jobs? I mean, I'm not a futurologist, but, you know, we know things are changing and things are being disrupted. What I can say is I agree that the human element becomes far more important. I mean, we already see that in our hotels. We're also entrepreneurs and we have a hotel brand called Martignal. And, you know, while certain things can be automated, for some things, guests want to be able to talk to people. And the person on the other side has to be able to resolve problems, you know? So I think critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, problem solving through collaboration, that's one of the reasons why we named our school United, because we think that, you know, global problems can only be solved through collaboration, being united as a world, and talking to each other, understanding each other, empathy. I mean, all these things, emotional intelligence, all these things will become more important whatever jobs there are. And I'd like to emphasize cross-disciplinary learning as a very important area that schools should be focusing on, because you know, it's you know, when you get a physicist thinking with a philosopher, or, you know, when you see some amazing examples of solutions coming out of engineers, architects, and the developers sitting down together, you know, for a creative session. So, you know, if you can bring, you know, kids to really think across disciplines early on, we're building thinkers for the future. That's my belief.
Yeah. However, Chitra, I will challenge on saying that we wanted to talk to humans to solve problems. I think that's only because talking to the computers now, they don't solve them quick enough. So, for example, you know, I lost my credit card a couple days ago, and the fact that I could pick up my mobile phone, open up the interface, and slide a switch to say turn off the card without calling a person, without having to interact with people, was wonderful. And so I think really the future is going to say, if the computers can do it for you much better and more efficiently, I'd like to talk to a computer instead.
You're right on one hand. I mean, I've done enough bookings on booking.com and Airbnb, and when there's a problem that needs to be solved, I don't want a chat answering, or, you know, yes, you're right. If they can get it solved, fantastic. But, you know, that's what I'm saying. You need to be flexible. And, you know, the next question is going to be a rhythm of change. You know, how fast should we be changing? And Krishan said, you know, we're not moving fast enough, you know, in teaching kids, you know, adults competences. You know, that is going to be key. Obviously, you know, whatever the bots can do, great. We have a chat bot on our website too. Great for now, you know, all those simple questions get answered, but as it gets more complex, people want to, you know, so that's just a sort of small example. But, you know, this cross-disciplinary thinking, I think, is something that, you know, definitely needs to be focused on in schools and universities. And, you know, yeah, we'll come to that later when I have to give Princess some advice, but, you know, we'll.
What about you, Monique? Do you like talking to people or talking to computers? Which is the preference for solving problems?
Well, if I hang in line with Delta Airlines, then definitely I would like to talk to humans. And that's usually my first instinct. I say, please talk to the operator. Because most of the time, it's not as easy as just deactivating a credit card. Like for that, cool, I can do that on the phone. But if you have some more complex issues, I find it quite annoying to actually go through the same loops over and over again. I think it's also important for our kids who actually grow up much more with social media than I have, or being much more digital native than we will ever be able to envision, to learn how to communicate properly and to communicate with folks from all different backgrounds. And echoing Chitra's point of, yes, interdisciplinary is critical, but also interdisciplinary with disciplines that you didn't even consider as part of your initial solution. Because sometimes we set up collaborations And you think about the different, industries or partners, and they already are in the usual network of collaborators. So cool. But how about, you think about the future of cities, for example, with nurses or with musicians or, with people that are not architects or in the built environment, to actually challenge those viewpoints, I think is really important. And for our kids to learn that you can find ideas anywhere, and it's not, discipline centric is essential. And we don't do that often enough. We don't send a marketing professional to a genome conference. And I think that's where the magic happens, at those intersections. That's where innovation is born. We need to do more of that.
Why don't we send them there, Monique?
Because I just think that companies, if someone working in marketing would go to them and say, hey, I'd love to go to the genome conference, but like, no, we don't have that in the budget. We actually don't. You can go to a marketing conference or something that we can conceive as relatable. So as we talk about the future of education, I also feel, the workplace has to shift significantly. I mean, everybody working in the workplace right now has been educated in the old traditional model of education. So we are all living in this massive status quo trap that even so education may have not worked for us, which, for example, it didn't for me, you still believe that somehow the system turned you out okay. And so as a result, the next wave of talent that we are bringing in, you want to see like similar pathways. And really what you want to encourage is different pathways, have the braveness to actually say, no, that is an unusual school system. It's an unusual way of educating. And yeah, that person seems to have a lot of competency. So it shifts the dialogue. You're not being hired in because you have a certain GPA. You're not getting access to college because you have a certain GPA, which we already know is no predictor of success, but you're being hired in because of you. And I think that dialogue has to change, because then we surface different talent that currently doesn't have access to education. And that's a big call out, right? Because it requires both the workplace to think differently about recruiting practices, but also education to actually start the shuffle.
I can see Mopani getting anxious about the whole timekeeping thing, and I hope everybody can forgive the fact that we're overrunning on such an interesting topic. I was gonna just remind everybody that I put something in the chat, but because the chat here is disabled for attendees, we've opened up a kind of chat page on Menti. So if you want to go on there, you're welcome to add anything you want. I can see a lot of questions coming in the Q&A as well, but this is completely just anything you want to comment on anything. So for the panelists, if you want to have a quick look on that as well. Christian, just before Mopani kicks me under the table, if I could ask you, there's a really good comment here in the chat, which was how do we bridge the social economic gap and provide equal access for students who can't pay? I wonder if you could pick up on that one for us before we go on to the next question.
Absolutely. Actually, I was just answering that halfway. So
oh, wait, okay, brilliant. Thanks.
That's cool. We'll just jump into it. I think it's a tough one. So actually, my first interaction with education was teaching refugees that had just come to the UK. So we went to council estates, which is like the favelas or the projects as you would have in the US. And what I found was that one of the biggest issues in the disparity is that people from lower socioeconomic status backgrounds just don't feel seen. And I think that's the biggest problem, because if you can't see the problem or you can't have connections and hooks into it, it's very difficult. One thing that is often unsaid about the education system as it is present, a lot of it is kind of what we call the postcode lottery. So it's built on location. So obviously, if you can get yourself into a good neighborhood, you have a better chance of getting into a better school. Then you get into a better school, you can get a better college, and you can see the snowball goes on. And so it's a difficult one. There are a number of schemes, like a lot of top tier universities do run scholarship programs, but again, it's the visibility of that. And then there is a real need for outreach, I think, outreach and collaboration. Now, clearly, with the unfortunate events last year of George Floyd, we've kind of again seen that systemically we have massive issues in this. And I don't think there's a quick answer, but as I say, I think there's a few tools that are already out there, which are, outreach programs. There are some that are expanding. But the honest truth is, as educators, we're not doing a fantastic job. Now, however, one thing that has helped is this sort of movement away from, purely physical education. So the problem always was that there's only so many people you can fit into a classroom. And so, we were lucky enough to work with the University of Oxford on their first digital learning program. Prior to us working with them, they were only working with, a few thousand students through a course run. Now we're doing, well over 100,000, and the cost to access is 1/10 of what it used to be. So I feel like it's a combination of factors we need to play out. But as I say, the real big issue is visibility and reach.
Fantastic, thanks, Christian. Mopani, I know you're anxious about the time, right? Where do you want to take the next bit?
I think we only have 7 minutes. I would really love to go straight to yours, Stu. The last one with your goddaughter.
The godparents question. Okay, so this is how I love to round out any discussion about the future of work or the future of education, because we can all have opinions, and this is super interesting, right? And we can all compare and contrast academically, but when the rubber hits the road and it's actually your own kids, this is where it becomes important. And Mopani's right there. A lot of us on this call are right there. Okay, so my question to all of you, you as panelists are my newly anointed godparents to Sophia, my daughter. She's 9. And in 9 years' time, she will probably be doing something like going to university or entering the workplace. And we need to work out what she's supposed to be studying now. So truthfully, from the heart, what should she be studying and why? And I guess I'll take that first to Monique.
So I've been thinking about this. Actually, the question in the chat also was about someone having an 18-year-old who is ready to go to college. And so I would actually contextualize my answer in where we are today, right? If you have a kid that is 18 years old today, we still have the existing systems, and the kid has to be successful in the existing system. So trying to push the boundaries and actually send them to universities that allow for that exploration is really important, but still within the existing system. For your daughter, I would suggest for Sophia, hopefully the landscape in 9 years is going to look vastly different, and we have much more convergence of higher education. So I would think that the degrees to that time are also much more customizable, which will hopefully allow her to enter college and really just be in sponge mode for the first 2 years, right? Absorb as much as possible from a vast majority of different subjects, and then choose where her passions lie and really create a project portfolio where she can engage with the external world as much as with the internal world. And I think that's a pathway that she can then hone in over time. But hopefully by then there will be a little bit more change. It's almost 10 years, huh? It's a decade. We waited 100 years. So now we can accelerate this.
Well, it only changes if we change it, right?
Yeah.
So Chitra, you formed a school, right? As a godparent, you're the perfect godparent, right? So
I don't know about perfect godparent, but we have 150 kids in our school across 20-something different nationalities. So I'm pretty proud of that. And I have 4 kids, so it's a constant conversation. What do you do, kids? I'm a firm believer in, training both sides of the brain. And do different things, like do another language. I know you believe in translation software, and I know there's stuff out there that's but actually studying a language, as I said in the video, gets you into that space of empathy to understand what another culture is about. It's about art, literature, what they do from day to day, what their dances are about, what their festivals are about. So it goes much deeper. And to focus on different skills and areas. So I brought something show and tell. I know you said put everything you're going to talk about on the chat, but there needs to be an element of surprise in order to engage the audience. And show and tell. This is a book called Range by David Epstein. I'll put it on the chat later. And a fantastic book about how generalists triumph in a specialized world. And yes, everyone should know the basics of coding today. What is it about? But, I would say to Sophia, get different toolkit, different skills and competences into your toolkit. I'm a big believer, actually, my oldest is about to start the Basque degree, the BASC at University College London. And I'm absolutely astounded that not more universities offer you this opportunity to do, he's going to do computer science and economics, and that might change by the time he starts, or is in the second year. The sort of liberal arts approach where you do a double major, in two completely different things, I think will serve Sophia well if universities are still around, in the same way. Of course, they're going to be around, but in a different way. And I would say that's one of the reasons why we're building this hybrid campus, for universities to understand that courses like edX, Coursera, etc., kids are going to be doing, a bit of this, a bit of that. I mean, my son in his gap year is already doing a data sciences course and a Python programming. My daughter is in grade 11 and is doing MOOCs on law because she's really interested in law. Is to bring the social aspect of, kids meeting each other, peer-to-peer contact, some contact with tutors. So, be prepared, be flexible. Innovation is born out of, different skills coming together. And the book starts off comparing Roger Federer and Tiger Woods. And Roger Federer is simply one of my favorite athletes out there, and how he actually tried out various sports and, was very athletic, obviously, but, unlike Tiger, only started specializing in tennis, sort of, when he was a teenager. And, and he's one of the greatest athletes in the world. And experiment like Vincent van Gogh did, he was not immediately a genius or was recognized as one, but experimented in a lot of different areas. He was considered a failure, poor thing. As an art salesman, but he acquired different skills. So, build a range is what I would say.
Yeah, and so Chitra brought up, coding experience, and I would actually, kind of let your daughter know that probably in 10 years, coding experience will not be necessary.
Yeah,
we're already in the
Not
edge
even Pascal, Dave. Come on.
Not even Pascal, not even Fortran.
Hey, I'm an electronic engineer by undergraduate training. I loved the way it taught me how to think. But I then specialized. I did law for engineers, I did French. I sort of made my own program, and then I became a chartered accountant, and then I did an MBA, and then I became an entrepreneur. So, it took me a long time. I became an entrepreneur at 31. All right, so 30, whatever.
But
so,
what's happening in business right now is that there's something called low-code application platforms and low-code, no-code platforms. Really, if you can draw a Visio diagram, you can program computers. And so, really, the information and the kind of the guidance I would give to your goddaughter or my goddaughter is to really understand, like has been said, how to interact with people, because how to interact with computers is going to be second nature in the future. And really the value you have as a person is going to be how to be able to get the computer to talk to another person. And that interaction with the computer to the human is going to be the critical factor.
I never thought the computer guy would bring me speak to humans. I want to applaud you, Dave. Come
well
on.
done, yay, Dave, yay. Absolutely, no.
Hang on,
yeah.
left field from Dave. Krishan, come on, as the best godparent or the last godparent here on the list, what are you going to do?
Well, I'm the mischievous godparent.
Oh no, I knew there was a reason I shouldn't have said yes. Okay.
So for darling Sophia, I would say, actually a lot of the conversations we've had today are about external things, the external wants, needs, aspirations. But my perhaps greatest gift I could ever give to Sophia is a real hunger and drive to understand herself. Because the reality is, to Chitra's point in her journey, I think we've all a merry band of misfits in that perhaps, as Monique mentioned, that we kind of have co-opted a system, and maybe it's worked for us, maybe not so. Maybe we've rebelled against the machine.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that would really, really help Sophia is really understanding herself, really understanding what her needs, her wants, her aspirations, and really dedicating time to that throughout her life. Because I think that gives you the greatest ROI that, honestly, any discipline could give you. So educate yourself on yourself.
Be a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But Pani, what can we do with this panel? What do you think of this advice?
I think, first of all, we should follow them. We should follow them on LinkedIn and keep in touch. I've definitely taken away a lot. I think there's a lot there, but I guess for me, it's exploring, but also managing existing systems, as Monique mentioned, but exploring whether that's in new languages, as Chitra said, Dave doing relationships, Christian understanding yourself, and understanding yourself. That's my takeaway.
Okay, fantastic.
It's philosophical. Know thyself. It's actually Hinduism as well. Know thyself, by the way. And just to point out, I brought the Hindu goddess of learning, Saraswati.
You tied it all together. You tied it all together. I love it. So I want to thank everybody for being on the panel today and for preparing so much as you have done for today. And for all the people who've brought questions here and been in the chat and contributed to the different polls, thank you very much indeed. This is such a topic for the now because so many people have been disrupted in their education. So many children have been sat at home or been without education for so long. And this isn't just in the UK or America or wherever, this is global. This is an incredible amount of disruption that we've seen, and it will change how everybody adapts and learns, and some of the disparities are much different, much bigger than they were before. And I'd just like to leave everybody with a question, which is, when things like education are so important, when they're just as fundamental as air and water, why do we not have a system that gives education for all? And I don't understand that as a human being. And I just like to throw that seed out there into the world, because if there's some entrepreneurs watching this that think they can change that, I think that would be a really good thing to do. So thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Stu, I just wanted to say thank you very much. But with all these questions that are unanswered, there has not been enough time. If these can go on to the events page somehow, we could answer them there. I suppose is what I wanted to say. There's so many questions.
Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can push these over onto the menti.com, and why don't we, once we switched off the recording in a second, we'll just carry on the menti.com and answer everything off. Would that be good for everybody?
Yeah.
Is that okay? And Dave, I mean, Dave's not even started his day yet, so he can do whatever he wants right now. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Mopani, as ever.
Thank you, Mopani. Thank you, Stu.
Thank
you.
you.
The rest of you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All the best.
Bye.